Just Squeeze Me is the first track off of Paul Desmond's 1975 album entitled Pure Desmond. The album featured Paul Desmond on alto sax, Connie Kay on drums, Ron Carter on bass, yeah, that Ron Carter, and of course Ed Bickert on his Telecaster. His solo sounds so cohesive and perfect you'd think he wrote it ahead of time, but I assure you the solo was improvised. There will be a PDF available with all the examples in standard notation and tab. The full transcription of the whole solo will also be available as well. I'll leave the links to both below. No matter how hard you try, you can't play on guitar what you can play on piano or get a big band orchestra to do. But it's through those limitations that allow us to create something new or different. And when you're a genius like Ed Bickert, the guitar does become a little orchestra, or at least his version of an orchestra. We have to talk about the intro to the song. Ed plays a very simple intro using only one chord shape, but man, does it ever sound hip. It's a triad with an added flat 9 voice below the triad. The other way to look at it is it's a diminished chord with an added major 7th. The chord comes straight out of the diminished scale. Ed is using it here to get a B flat add flat 9 and a B flat 13 flat 9, while bassist Ron Carter plays B flat notes to match Ed's. It's a typical type of thing to do is by having the bass pedal on the 5 of the key. We're in the key of E flat, so B flat is the 5. He uses the same shape down a whole step to connect the two shapes. So basically he's going here where the top note is B flat, and he's sliding down a whole step where A flat is the top note, down to where G is the top note. The easiest way to explain what I believe he's thinking here is as long as you make sure the top note is from the half-whole diminished scale, you're good. The B flat half-whole diminished scale works because it's a perfect fit over a B flat 7 chord, and that's what he's essentially setting up. B flat 7. This is what it sounds like when you slide that same shape around the diminished scale. Our ear tends to hear the top note first, so even the auxiliary connecting chord he's using isn't from the scale. The ear doesn't hear it as being wrong. He doesn't stay on the chord long enough, and the top note is from the scale, so it works. It's bloody genius. This is a very common chord technique, and it popped up in Ed's playing all the time. Next, we need to have a look at what Ed plays behind Paul Desmond during the last 8 measures of the melody. I know we haven't even got to the solo yet, but what he plays in these 8 measures is so cool, we have to talk about it. It not only sounds cool on its own, but also works well with what Paul Desmond plays on top of what Ed is doing. The bass is pedaling on a B flat, like the intro, just different rhythmically, and Ed has a little more freedom to play something different this time. From the standard chord changes. In the second measure, Ed plays a flat 6 chord of the key, B major 7, flat 5. B flat, or A sharp if you prefer, in this case, is the 7th of B major 7 flat 5, and it adds some extra tension to the pedal tone that Ron Carter is playing. In the last 3 measures or so, he introduces the same chord voicing he used in the intro, but takes it even further this time in half steps. He lands on the functioning chords here, here, and here on the upbeats, giving it great forward motion. It also serves as a launching pad for his solo incredibly well. Then it resolves so beautifully on the E flat major 9 chord to start his solo off. Here's those 8 measures in full. In the last 8 measures of the first chorus of his solo, he does some non-typical guitar things. It sounds closer to when a piano player hits a big spread with 2 hands. Ed plays some tasty single notes in his solo too, but for the purpose of this lesson, I want to show you the incredible way that Ed used chords in his solos while playing melody notes on top, more like a piano player. This voicing in fourths that contains the 3rd, the 7th, and the 13th of E flat major 7. He keeps the 3rd and 7th of A flat major 7 with some notes carried over from the E flat major 7. Each subsequent chord does the same for the most part, voicing the 3rd and the 7th. And notice how much of the chords are placed on the upbeats again, keeping it moving forward. He does this quite a bit, where he gets a lot of mileage from this A flat major triad that serves as both the F minor 7 and the B flat 9 sus chord. This is one of the sections in the solo that made me want to learn it years ago. He uses what I think of as an E flat minor chord without the root, and it creates a C altered sound when you put the C on the bottom. He uses A flat major triad again for F minor 7, and then lands on that same diminished voicing to create B flat 13 flat 9. Again, they're all on the upbeats. Remember, Ed is improvising the chords and the melody at the same time. If you play the melody line on top, it would stand out on its own. It's incredible. Right after that comes the first 8 measures of his second chorus. He starts off again with that piano spread voicing sound. Here, he's using a great voicing for F minor 9, with the B flat voiced on top, which is the 11th. So you end up with an F minor 11 chord. Then while holding that down, he plays the 13th, the D, with his 4th finger back to the B flat note. By the way, I get into analyzing the solo a little bit more in depth in the PDF. And remember, I'm also making the whole solo available as a download as well. This time on the 1-6-2-5 turnaround, Ed plays some different chords. Now, for the coolest part of the solo. This is the other reason why I wanted to figure out what he was doing. Ed gets down and gets a little funky here. According to Lauren Lofsky.
And the other thing, amazing thing that probably a lot of people don't know is that a lot of Ed's solos contain little melodic fragments from a million tunes. You know this thing here? You know what that is? That's a quote from a Lee Morgan tune called Sidewinder.
Okay, yeah. The use of the sharp 9 chords really catches the ear. He uses 2 forms, this shape and this shape. He uses a device here that pianists do all the time. It's a cliché oblique motion contrapuntal line. He then raises it up an octave and resolves on the interval of a major second, D flat and E flat. Which harmonically informs you that he landed in an E flat 7 territory. He wraps up the solo using some similar type of ideas with a slight little twist. Let me play you the last 8 measures so you can hear how simply and elegantly he ends his solo. That's why Ed Bickert's jazz rocks. Check out my Patreon page where you get access to all my lessons for free, plus some other bonus content like chop building exercises for one. And you also get to hang out with me once a month on Zoom and have access to me that the general public doesn't have. You can ask me as many questions as you like. Now hold on, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like these videos over here.